beautiful Sunday for another weekly Q&A section. We are going to be fielding questions from Discord and then the YouTube member section as well. And we'll actually start it off with a very quick analysis here of Bitcoin. Bitcoin on the daily time frame has brushed up against this last major trending high, which we saw from early March. And thus far, Bitcoin has traded up into it, even exceeded it a little bit on a wick. But this is a pretty good place for expecting a bit of a pullback, regardless of whether you're super bullish or super bearish. A pullback from here is more likely than not. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but more likely than not is something that I'm always interested in, betting on the direction of, or if I have to choose. In this case, you don't actually have to take a trade here, but when doing YouTube videos and looking at direction, this would be a good place for a pullback. To support that evidence, we can also see that daily stochastic momentum is also turning down simultaneously after hitting some of the highest levels that we've seen basically since the November rally. Again, momentum getting into a critical region like this is actually a bullish thing long term, or I guess more medium term. But of course, in the very short term, it's difficult to keep that momentum up. Thus, you typically get a pullback. And this one has seen the current momentum pivot move all the way up now to 95,200, meaning that as long as Bitcoin is below there, which is not, by the way, an impossible task to reclaim, but as long as Bitcoin is below there, well, of course, the sort of assessment would be a pullback in the short term is much more likely, especially coming off of extreme volatility reads like we see right here. Again, the past time that we saw something relatively similar to this was during the March, collapse. And before that, we haven't seen anything like this since November. And then, of course, the real portion of this analysis, one that I made a very quick YouTube post, or sorry, not YouTube post, but Twitter post on, is of course the moons. The night man has cometh, and you can see that we've gotten the bare moon officially as of last night. And well, if history is anything to go off of, which typically it is, this is usually a period of some downside. Now, not always. You can definitely find some iterations here where, it just went fucking up. But in general, this was a down period. This was, Bitcoin made the lows on this exact moon right here, but it did make new lows when the moon came around. Of course, this one over here worked out. This one over here did work out. But of course, did provide a major opportunity. Same thing over here, same thing over here. Over here, less so over here, but, is in there, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. At the end of the day, you can decide for yourself if this is relevant to your interests or not, but I would say that in combination, of course, with just a very simplistic look over here from momentum oscillators, and also just, retesting a major high like this, very likely to pull back, and, anywhere around low 91s is fair game, as we've gone over several times in this past week of videos. Really nothing's changed since then. Now, here's the thing, and I don't want to give too much away because we're still a few days away from the end of this month's closure, but the sort of long-term outlook that I'm going to be having for Bitcoin is going to massively depend upon its ability to stay above about $91,000 by May 1st. So we'll see what happens there, and then I'll make an assessment. But for right now, Bitcoin's obviously well above, but it is setting up for a pullback. And we still got a few days left in this month to chew through. So we'll see where things come in at the very end of this month. Anyways, as you did see very, very quickly over here, there is a nice 30-day free trial for basically all of our indicator packages at this point, that being the Quant Prime service, that being the Quantum Wave Bands, even Caretaker's Indicator Suite, and most recently, probably the one that I've really fallen in love with, is the price action pivots, just showing you where price essentially changes its bias for whether it's an uptrend or a downtrend. And you can actually see it in the process right here. It is technically having an upside pivot on the 4-hour time frame, so not a higher term time frame here, just very, very low term time frame, right around $94,000, meaning that if Bitcoin closed below there, well, we will see this formally bullish period pivot switch into a bearish pivot. You actually see it developing right there with that purple line. And I've really just loved this indicator since I got my hands on it. I guess it's been about a few weeks now, maybe a month, just because it gives you such a clean and quick snapshot as to where the buy should be for that time frame. And yeah, you can see it. I mean, switch around right there. So assuming, we just saw it in action, guys. The 4-hour time frame has closed, and it has indeed switched into a downside pivot here. So yeah, anyways, that's again just relevant to the short term. I really don't expect anything super significant until we get into the real week of trading price action. Aston Villain says also the yearly open. By the way, we are live here on Twitter as well. I won't be looking too much at Twitter as we go through everything else, but that was actually a pretty pertinent observation here. In fact, let's verify. So here's the yearly time frame, and where was the close? The close was 93,750, and of course, well, I mean, it's basically around the same area. I mean, very, very small differential there. All right. And then just one quick question here as well from Hodling Bitcoin on Twitter. How does cash settlement in Bitcoin CME futures marketplace encourage arbitrage of CME versus spot price? And does it create price suppression of spot BTC? It can create spot suppression or spot impression. I don't know, just like the opposite of that is what I'm trying to look for, depending upon, how the actual CME futures are, like what their premium is versus their closing price. So that's not, I know that people like to repeat this all the time, but that's not entirely true. As far as cash settlement, it just means that when that futures contract expires, you get paid back in cash rather than in Bitcoin. Which has its advantages, can be used as like a hedging tool versus perhaps spot Bitcoin holdings, or maybe even a Bitcoin ETF like IBIT, because that is spot Bitcoin, more or less. So yeah, it completely depends, man. Completely depends upon, was it a premium? Was it a discount? And even then, does it create suppression? Not necessarily. It can also create, again, whatever the opposite of suppression would be. I actually don't have the word at the top of my tongue. All right, cool. We've gotten through that. Let's now get into the member sections over here from Twitter. No, from YouTube. I see Asti is first. She says, "Hey, E squared. Good morning to you as well, Asti." Nice one. Just a very, very easy one to answer. Anyways, Crypto Hood says, "Hey, what are your thoughts on precious metals? Silver and platinum seem very undervalued, especially when compared to gold on a very long-term time frame." So silver, I know that we've looked at this chart in the past a lot. Overall, I like it. I think it's bullish. Platinum, actually don't know platinum's ticker. I'm not like humongously into precious metals, or actually I'm really not into them at all, but is it undervalued compared to gold? I mean, it's like, does it deserve a higher valuation versus gold? I mean, the monthly does look like it is putting in a low here, to be fair. So yeah, but I'd really shy away from drawing like direct comparisons between these. These are different assets after all. And something like platinum, I do think that it will eventually pop back up towards 1,500 or so, but this can take a long time. This is a quarterly chart right here. It could easily take, I don't know, fucking 5 years if it wants. But does the price of gold have anything to do with this? Like, no, I wouldn't say so, or at least obviously not so, because it's not reacting in the same way as gold at the time that you would expect something to act as, a precious metal, like a safe haven asset to act as. So yeah, man, I'd have to say no. If I'm understanding this question properly. Gold, however, I think it's time for me to call a top on gold, or I think I might have called it last week, but now it's more or less confirmed. Obviously, it's a short-term high and a medium-term high for sure. I mean, that much has obviously already come down a decent amount. But can this flip around into a major macro top? Let me actually go to the real gold chart. It might be too early to say that. I should probably wait for the end of this month, but it's possibility here for sure. Closing below 3,300 or especially 3,200 by the end of April, and I would say, yeah, and this thing probably plays out a pullback sub 3,000, but there's still an uptrend at the end of the day. So this one, entered into its parabolic advance. It's been parabolic for quite some time, since basically the beginning of this year. I think that this is as good of an area as any for, like I said, at least a medium-term high. I think it very much has the potential to be a macro high, especially with volatility readings like this. All right, cool. Crypto Hood is back again. He says, "Have you seen the price of Amex stock NASDAQ?" Okay, price target of 750. Well, no, I haven't seen I don't think I've ever looked at this chart, man. It's just some random chart, to be honest. Okay, so it's trading at 150, and you are asking if it's going to go to 750. No, or at least it's not my first target, man. Look, this thing is in a pretty nasty macro downtrend. I do think that it probably goes higher sometime this year, maybe towards $3.50 to maybe even $4. But talking about $7.50, I mean, that is very far away right now. I would just be looking for like 3.5, maybe 4. You can even see the white 200 simple on the weekly time frame here coming in around 380 and coming down now too. So I wouldn't front run a reversal here when you've seen something that has generally been in an overall downtrend since 07, 08. I mean, it's had all of the opportunities in the world. So I would treat, moves like this as moves to probably sell into. Although I do think it goes higher, I wouldn't be treating this thing as likely to go anywhere above 7 or 8 or whatever the fuck, especially as long as it's below basically your 2024 highs. Yeah, your 2024 highs. The price action pivot right here, actually, perfectly in alignment with what I'd be thinking there. Very, very nice. All right, see what else we got. We got Cousin Burley. She says, "Hey Crown, what's up? AFRM on NASDAQ on the 5-day. Any hopium to smoke here? I like it. We have ticker, we have exchange, and we have time frame. It's really good. And I already forgot the 5-day. Okay, 5-day. Yes. Okay. Is there any hopium here? It depends what sort of time frame you are looking for on hopium. I do think it's put in a local low here. That much is obvious, and I do think this one still has some upside room. Yes, the price action pivot right now is 53.5, but all price action pivots fail at some point. I think that this one has a good probability to actually trade above there, maybe back up towards this gap at 62-ish. We are seeing 5-day stochastic momentum turn back up, which is a good sign. It is theoretically on the very high term timeframes, like a monthly, a higher low. So I would favor the trend here. But calling continuation to new highs, I would take it one step at a time. Look, if it trades back up to like 61, 62 bucks, I would look at that as a good sign. I think it still would take a while for it to, make a new high on this rally. Because that $81.50 high right here does look, $82.50 high right here does look pretty good to me. So, could this thing rally all the way up to like 56, 57 and then turn back down? Yeah, but next move in the short/medium term should be continuation to the upside. Maybe it fills the gap on the very short-term time frame basis back down here at 44.5 first. But my point is I wouldn't be expecting this low to be taken out before this one tries somewhere in this vicinity here, something like that. And then we have Via Whale Scalper. He says, "I choose rich." What the fuck? Let's like that comment as well. I also choose rich, but has it chosen me? Who knows? Anyways, we will now go over into the Discord section here. As always, the YouTube members get priority, and this one I can already see is like very fucking long. So we'll see how many we get through. Like I said, I'll make these videos around about an hour. Anyways, we have Myth Reindeer first. He says, "Hey there, happy past Easter to you too. Happy past Easter to you as well, sir. Could you please take a look at Deep USDT?" Yeah, man. I was actually looking at this one because I still have it on my list for whatever reason here. Because it's had such an impressive move, similar to Sui, and I believe that this is like something related to Sui. I forget what it is, but something like that. Anyways, very impressive move, no doubt about this. Now let me zero in on the timeframes that you're looking at, daily, weekly. What do you think? It's a trap or maybe reversal into uptrend? I think that this definitely has trap potential right here. Yeah. This is a pretty damn good area for a trap to kind of evolve from. Similar with Sui, this one has like a very, very similar chart actually. You can see that it's rallied all the way up to the 382 level if we're looking at linear fibs here. And it did top out at the 50% level or so. So I would be looking at that as a good indication that, hey, if you start to lose 16 cents, especially on like a weekly closing basis, this would really look like one major massive bull trap. And I do suspect that you will play out at least some downside in the short term, probably reconnecting somewhere around that red moving average, the 5 EMA, which is currently at 13.5 cents or so. Weekly, same thing. I think next move is a pullback basically here. But pullback doesn't necessarily confirm a bull trap. I need to see closures below the relevant regions that we just spoke about. Even then, it's like, it might be a little bit too early to call it below like 16 cents on a weekly closure, but definitely if it comes back down below 12.5 cents, I'd say, yeah, that's my signal. And that is actually a little bit lower than where that 5 EMA would be. So basically, I would kind of have some hopium as long as it's above about 13.5 cents. When you start to go below 13 cents, though, that hopium really starts to look a lot more like, hey, it's a massive fucking bull trap. So yeah. Anyways, what's up, Dave Murphy on Twitter? Tristram says, happy Easter Crown and Elsa and Doggo and slaves. Yes, indeed. I have my own slaves, an army of slaves. They're called bots. Anyways, I'm tempted to try the quantum wave bands while it's still a transfer free trial. Could you please generate strategy tests for a period since last Bitcoin all-time? Sure. Actually, that's pretty easy to do. So I'm going to do it for the hourly timeframe strategy. Whoops. Just because I find most people are most interested in this. And by the way, for anyone watching this in the future, you can try it for free for any new user with the code trial in all capitals. And actually, if you do get the trial right now, even if you decide to cancel later, I mean, you're not going to get charged anything. But more importantly, if you do decide to stay on, we are actually going to be raising the price on May 1st from $70 to $90. So a $20 increase right there. We're also going to be adding more strategies. And of course, it comes with its own Discord channel now as well, and actually its own AI chatbot, which can help you out. Anyways, I'm waiting for this damn thing to load, and I just got an error there, so it's like terrible marketing. But let's flip it around, go to a different chart. That sometimes does happen. That's fine. Oh wow, it's actually different than what? Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's go to the index. Okay. So this one actually did open a long trade yesterday, which I spoke about, on Friday, basically on the low at $93,000. It has not closed that trade anytime since. You don't have to automate these, by the way. You can execute them manually. So like I was saying in yesterday's video, it's like, look, if I see an entry down here at 93 and it rallies like $3,000 to the upside, take some fucking profit. Take some fucking profit. That's just my personal take. Anyways, let's do the back test that you're actually looking for. Okay, yes. The last Bitcoin all-time high, you mean January 20th, like of this cycle or of last cycle? Or I guess it has to be this cycle because talking specifically about January. Well, this back test right here is going to obviously include that. I imagine, however, if we do just look towards January, it probably did top around there. So it actually has been on a steady downtrend since then, although it has had its wins along the way. I mean, that much is obvious when you look at it here. But let's see. So sorry, I should first let you know that this back test here is going all the way to, I think 2020. It should be 2020. January 3rd of 2023. So I'm guessing you're talking about the most recent January highs. In that case, I'd actually say that in the short term, it has not been amazing here. It has not been amazing. Now, understand that this strategy, which is more or less a done-for-you strategy, does offer some sort of options for customization. And like I said, you can also execute this manually as well. And you will notice that almost every time it fires off an entry, there is a chance to get out profitably. But if you do wait for the algo to tell you when to exit, well, in those cases, you might miss out on some. Anyways, what was I getting at? I forget what I was getting at, but yeah, I would say if you're looking at just from January of this year, it's probably somewhere around here. In fact, I can actually find exactly where that is. So let's see. What trade number was January 20th? January 20th here. 396. Oh, actually, it did go up a little bit more from there. So basically, it would be from where my cursor is at right now to, the most recent iteration. So actually a bit of a loss right there. But like I said, you don't have to trade it exactly as it tells you. You can use it more as a guideline as well. That's kind of how I would look at it. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful, man. All right. Mr. Rectop says, GM Crown and Elsa, thanks for all the content. All good, man. If there wasn't your automated trading, what would be your thoughts on trading or investment based on some fundamentals, market irregularities, or news? Okay, news obviously can't be done because anytime you play the news, you're always going to be the last person to know. Like we were having this conversation in Discord a while ago too. Like think about this logically. When it comes to the news, if you're waiting for some fucking analyst on CNBC to tell you, hey, the herpity derp happened here, and it's going to have some sort of an effect, well, understand that that news piece that he's telling you didn't literally just happen at that exact moment, and you are hearing it for the first time alongside everyone else hearing it for the first time as well. It had to go through multiple layers of confirmation, of communication between like person to person. Obviously, the news anchor is quite far away from that. And I'm sure along the way, there's going to be, people leaking information to their friends, to their family, hey, guess what's going to happen? Guess what's about to be released over here? Of course, it's that's illegal, but look, like, good luck fucking stopping that. So news obviously cannot be done like that. However, fundamentals. Okay, so the way that I look at fundamentals is that it can never be everything. It can never be everything, meaning that, if you like the fundamentals of some company, you can't just buy because of that. You at some point need to reference technicals in some way. That is quite literally the price. Like, at the very least, you have to reference, the fucking price that you want. Now, with that said, do I think that you should ignore fundamentals entirely? No, absolutely not. So as both a trader and investor, as an investor, it's very obvious why you want fundamentals, because, long term that helps. But as a trader, I do think it's better to trade fundamentally stronger assets compared to less fundamentally strong assets, because of a very simple reason. The reason is that when you have a stronger fundamental base, so for Bitcoin compared to other cryptos, for example, Bitcoin has a much less risks fundamentally. Why? Because you don't have to worry about the Bitcoin CEO getting arrested or dying or having some sort of hack or shit like this. No, but you do have that fundamental risk when you are looking at some sort of random altcoin, right? So I would prefer to trade things as a more active trader that don't have that added risk of potential ruin, that can come out of nowhere, that is completely unfucking predictable, where, you have options where that's just, less likely to happen. Ideally, when it comes to trading, you have both of those things, wrapped up with each other, good technicals and good fundamentals. That's what typically makes, good long-term trades. Are you guys doing a collab with Big Cheds? Only two guys I watch religiously. I've actually spoken with him a bit. We were trying to organize it a while ago. I think I had some time issues, or he had some time issues, whatever it was. He seems like a really cool guy. In fact, I'd really like to get on with him. But for now, we're just Twitter friends, I suppose. Anyways. Hamia says, GM sir, not crypto related. All right, perfect. But what computer laptop do you use? Also Mac or PC? I prefer PC, and I have a fucking beast of a rig below me right now. But I actually cannot recall whatever the latest, Intel and NVIDIA equipment is. That's what's in there. I fucking love it, man. I'm a computer nerd. In fact, this is the first time I actually have a desktop computer that I have not built myself. But man, I just fucking love it. I really do. Anyways, Manticore's, and to be honest, man, I've been a Mac boy in the past. I fucking can't stand it, especially when it comes to like financial stuff. The financial world runs on PC. It does. It just does. Windows and actually Linux to a lesser extent. But yes, it is relevant. Mac is usually a massive fucking issue. Anyways, Manticore says, Dear Sir Crown and Lady Elsa, hope the Easter Bunny brought Lady Elsa lots of eggs. She has many eggs, actually. And protein for you. Perfect. I love this. I love where this is going, sir. Just sorting some finances out and getting excited to try the new pivot indicator. How long will the trial be available? We're keeping it open just indefinitely for now. We want to get this tool in as many people's hands as possible. I think it's the perfect tool, especially for, newer people, because it makes things so fucking obvious. And it's like, hey, look, you have a bullish pivot right here. You're better off, scalping or trading to the upside until it switches around into a bearish pivot. And yes, at some point they all fail. They will all fail. So, at some point it will be wrong. But the most important thing is that it gives you a very objective and algorithmically defined method of switching around biases. So yeah. Anyways, as far as the rest of your question, I wanted to ask, how do you find it in terms of reliability, particularly compared to Fibonacci retracements? Completely different thing than Fibonacci retracements. Different, like, just a use case altogether. EMA pivots or crosses. Yeah. So I have actually been phasing out using moving average crosses as a trend filtering tool in favor of this. So instead of waiting for like, a 21 and 55 EMA cross to say, hey, we likely have an uptrend here. Now I use this, and I've been implementing it into my algos, and it's better because it's faster. That's just the short and narrow of it. So yeah. All right. Let's see what else we got. Does a pivot indicator provide more consistent or accurate signals? Of course, like anything, there's going to be, a little bit of a margin of error. But in my experience from watching it for a while now, and also the creator's experience, It's right. I would in my eyes, it's right 90 to 95% of the time. I would just blindly agree with it. There are instances, however, where I would disagree with it. Not necessarily that it's wrong, but I would say, hey, that's probably not the one you want to pay attention to. So yeah. All right. Moral.ethereum says, Happy Easter. Happy Easter to you as well, sir. Hope the Ethereums are going well. Mr. Van Duysen says, hello, Eric, the gray. Would like to test your strategic strength in a good 1v1 C. Oh, God. I'll be. Are we going to play the DEI mod or not, sir? That is perhaps that game is just fucking goated. That one, and also the Lord of the Rings Third Age mod for Medieval 2. Just, oh my God, I've spent so much fucking hours in that game. It's insane. It's actually insane. Can I please have your opinion on Plume USD on the daily, weekly? Sure. Let's see. Daily and weekly, huh? Not much of a weekly is going to be here because this thing's very new, so I don't think we need to look at that. But as far as price action pivots here, again, this would just directly address my buys. It's a sideways market. Your highs at around, 18.5, your lows at around just under 15. You're probably spending some time between there. You just tested the top side of the range. You're seeing momentum turn down alongside that. I would be expecting at least a return to the middle of the range. I think you've actually kind of already gotten there. And with the way that this one's positioned, I do think you come closer to the lower end of the range, but I wouldn't say that it's bearish. It's okay. It's fine as long as you're above the downside pivot, which is just under 15 cents. Again, on a closing basis, but yeah, it's really all that I've got to say about that. Above this high, I would say that this thing breaks out and is going to see a big move, 20 cents plus, something like that. Cool. All right. Yeah, way too new for a weekly, probably even a daily, honestly, as well. My fucking man, you know me very well. Samuel Johnson says, hey, Crown, update on BYD, please. Ticker 1211. Okay. It's like how the Chinese ones do it. With fucking numbers. Actually, probably smarter, honestly. You're going to run out of symbols for tickers anyways at some point. Pretty good here. This one is obviously in a long-term macro uptrend. It is having a phenomenal snapback after this early month's woes. So I look at that as like a really good thing overall. As far as the quarterly goes, I think you're going to see new highs this quarter, probably into the end of this year. Overall, very, very good. Very, very strong. I would be especially bullish as long as you're above whatever the early April low was. Just generally be looking towards the upside. Yes, there is a bearish pivot here, but I think that this one is very likely going to get taken out, and that'll obviously be the next new all-time high. But yeah, all higher term time frames bullish here. This thing goes higher this year. Don't know how high though. I mean, this is a blue sky breakout. You never know with these sort of things. They can go much higher and they can go decently higher, and they can also go not that much higher at all. But I think that this one's got it, decently higher at least. All right. Last time you were looking for a breakout, dumped in the recent volatility, but recovered well. Yeah, I think still breakout, man. It's the higher term timeframes that decide those sort of things. So, a wick to the downside like this, in hindsight, it's just a reconnect with the 5 EMA. I mean, you expect that even in your bull trend. So to me, that was an opportunity. Anyways. Hurricane Soto says, GM, happy belated Easter. Happy belated Easter to you as well, sir. Are there periods throughout a market cycle you turn the bot slave on and off in higher probability setup periods, or do you try to optimize your strategies to run in any market conditions? Yeah, really good question. So here's the thing. When I'm doing my back testing and going over it, I intentionally, for strategies that I use, always test the most agreeable situations, the most agreeable, like the best possible situations for it, and then also the worst possible situations. So I want to run it through like something that we saw in 2022 or even in 2020 with the Rona dump, a black swan. How did it perform there? And I almost always, in fact, will not choose strategies that do not perform acceptably during those times. Now, when I say acceptably, it doesn't mean they're going to make money. I just don't want to lose that much during that time, because one of the big lessons of algorithmic trading that I've really come into is that you really don't know which one of your trades is on a singular basis is going to be a winner or going to be a loser. At least I certainly don't know, because there's been so many fucking times where my bot takes a trade and I'm like, oh shit, this one's going to be a fucking loser. I need to get out like right now and just and dump this damn thing. And then it ends up being a winner, and vice versa as well. So I've resolved to the fact that I don't know which one's going to be a winner or loser. I do know over a longer period of time, it's going to go in this direction. So I just want to keep this thing on and not fuck with it, so I don't fuck with that long term. So yeah, man. All right, cool. Let's move on. Let's see. We got where? Blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah. Then you go on to say, or do you try to some people do try to optimize your strategies for like specific market environments. It can be done, sure. I'm not. It's just I don't do it. I don't do it. It doesn't mean that it can't be done. But other people, especially even in the Quant Prime service, they do it, and I assume that they have good results if they're doing it. So fair enough. Anyways, Electric Feels 420, nice name. Hey Crown, if you could choose between trading Bitcoin or stock options for a year with the goal of maximizing your equity, which one would you choose and why? Well, I mean, you could trade stock options on like a Bitcoin ETF, right? So it's kind of a moot point, but let's assume that you can't do that. We're just talking about like regular equities. I think Bitcoin still has the edge in terms of potential, just because Bitcoin, still like a 2x move in a year is nothing for Bitcoin, whereas most stocks, most equities, that's like not very likely. So there's going to just generally be more opportunity there. Yes, with options, you get a little bit of extra leverage, but nah, I'd probably go with Bitcoin in that case, just as like pure potential. Now, personally, I'd rather trade stock options because I think I don't want to say options are easier to trade, but there's a lot more ways that you can manage positions with options, which make trading a lot, in my opinion, less risky, just because you can set up, strategies that will especially cap your losses, and in fact in some cases can even kind of make like a losing trade into a slightly winning trade if done correctly. Anyways, Treebeard says hello and hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well as well, sir. The oldest being of this planet. Nuke the Black Cube says GM Simp and Virgin. Elsa is the Virgin. Very nice. Crown, do you have any criteria for abandoning Bitcoin as a long-term hold position? Oh, sure. I mean, if I see something that would be really concerning for me for like the long term, like let's say Bitcoin came back down below the last cycle low. Okay. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on there. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it were to, that would be an indication to me that something drastically different is going on compared to the long-term history of this asset, because we've not seen Bitcoin make new lows below prior cycle lows. So that would be a massive change of behavior, and that would make me massively concerned. No longer as a long-term huddle position, but of course, along the way, I'd probably have to cover things anyways. Yeah, and also if I saw Bitcoin go down more percentage-wise than it did from the previous cycle, which the previous cycle I think was like 77.5%. See, yeah, 77.5. If I saw it go down like 80%, I would say that's a change of behavior as well, because it's been a characteristic from cycle to cycle that every cycle has diminishing returns both to the upside and the downside. So I look at that as a change of behavior as well. All right. Confiscation via executive order as gold, hash rate. Like actual events. I don't know. It didn't really seem to hurt gold, to be honest. Hash rate centralization and mining block. Look, if governments around the world made it very difficult and almost criminal to just hold Bitcoin, yeah, I'd probably capitulate myself. Just I don't want to fucking deal with that. I don't want to have to think about going to fucking jail or something like this. I'd just be like, all right, it was nice. It worked out really, really well for a while. I mean, I've nearly been in the asset like 10 years now. I'll just leave. I'll just leave, and that's okay. Hopefully there's the next thing after that. Anyways, All right. Dunning-Kruger effect says, hello, sir. Could you please take a look at DG Euronext is the next breakout I was looking for? I don't know. Let's see. DG, Dollar General. Wait, I feel like, oh, no. You're looking at Euronext. Okay, so it's definitely not this. It's got to be this one. Vinci, but actually pretty good as well. Yeah, I think so. Quarterly, this thing is going to make new highs this quarter. Almost, I shouldn't say is going to, it's very likely to. I think it makes new highs probably into the end of the year. This is very, very strong. Very, very strong. The yearly is breaking out. It's not just a quarterly breakout, it's a yearly. You just don't see that too often. So yeah, that is significant. All right. Max Optimism says, hi, Crown, thinking about the most successful traders you know, is there one common skill they all possess? Yeah, it is. And I've thought about this a lot. It is self-awareness. They're very self-aware as to how they're thinking. They're very self-aware as to like why they're thinking what they're thinking. They're very much in tune, and they also have an intense amount of personal responsibility, which is a really good combo. So yeah, very conscientious, in other words. All right, Max wait, no, that was just it. My bad. Texas Sigep, what's up, man? Surprising dearth of requests today. Yes, indeed, very girthy as well. Have you been nibbling on any long-term positions at these prices, or are you, as many suspect, a Bitcoin maxi? Wait, what? How is that different than that? As far as Bitcoin, when Bitcoin was down around about $80,000, yeah, I was buying around there, a little bit below 80, a little bit above 80, but yeah, I was interested in buying there for very long-term positions, around here. I spoke about this a lot on videos during that time, but that is, again, intended for very long-term hold positions. Now, in hindsight, this, they look like pretty good buys right now, but I don't care what it's doing right now. I could easily see Bitcoin fail here and come back down, all the way to those entries, maybe even lower. But I'm thinking like 5-10 years minimum hold for those, which in my opinion is fine. We just saw a 30% correction, 32% correction almost. Whenever one of my assets comes down, 20-30%, especially crypto, well, I shouldn't say crypto, especially Bitcoin, because shitcoins can go down much more than that. I look at that as investable. It's probably not, it's not necessarily intended to make money on the next exact tick, but, thinking again, multiple years down the road. Yeah, I like it. So yeah, any TA books you recommend? The classic ones are pretty good, like Stock Market Profits and Technical Analysis. But to be honest, I haven't found too much use for books myself, just because you really it's just so difficult to explain the nuances with text in a book and just static pictures. When I created my programs, for example, like the Trade for a Quant, I just don't think I could do it without videos. Like it just wouldn't be effective. So yeah. But I do find books for psychology really fucking good. And a good trading one would be Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. Great one. He also has a bunch of free talks that you can listen to on YouTube, which some people think are even better than the books. Okay. Hi, Crown. Not sure if TA is meant to be used in this way, but here we go. Oh boy. What would it look like if Fibonacci's price targets came true, 122,000 and possible 208,000 top around September to November, as in ignoring all of your current biases, and how likely you think it might be at, how you might think it might be at the moment? In your experience, what could you reasonably expect from your indicators price action if those targets were to materialize? So ignoring all my current biases. So now I'm adopting the same bias as Fibonacci's targets. Okay. Well, what would I be looking for? Okay. A couple things would be very obvious to me if they were to happen. One would be the monthly stochastic oscillator turning around and soon. And when I say soon, I mean definitely not definitely before the end of May on the monthly. Right now, the pivot is 106,000 and change. We'll see what that updates to when we get into May. And then if it still stays down in May, I would look, I don't think it's going to be reaching those targets anytime soon, at least, or especially like the deeper ones. And again, no disrespect to Swanee, like he has his reasoning, he has the reasoning behind the reasoning of what he thinks, and I have a great amount of respect for him. And we're just different people. We naturally have different thoughts on the market. It's completely fine. But yeah, as long as this pivot is not met, then I just don't think that that's happening. However, if the monthly were to reclaim this again at maximum, the end of May, okay, I have some things to reconsider. The other thing to be mindful of, not the moons, but we can go here. Hey, what the fuck? This is, derp. Did I completely fuck up this chart or something? What the hell? This is not good. Oh, God damn it. Wait, what? This can't be right. Oh my God, I fucked up this chart. God damn it. All right, fuck. I have to redo that whole goddamn chart. That is like my one, I will go into an autistic rage like none other. Wait, no, it's right here. What the hell? Okay, all right. Crisis averted. Anyways, if we were to go to the monthly here, looking at it from an RSI perspective, like if I saw the RSI make a higher high, then yeah, I suppose some of those very deep targets that Swanee has are not just possible, but they're probable. But until that happens, I mean, bearish divergence is typically how all of these market cycles have ended, and we did have it right here. In fact, I was doing an analysis on that yesterday on my own, and I just find more stuff that makes me think that the highs are either in or they're very close to being in from a price target perspective. So like maybe they go up to like 120 at some point, but I don't expect much further than that. Anyways. Aniz Ken says, "Hey Crown, well wishes from Florida. When you coming over? Hopefully soon. I think about it every day now. Would love to meet, a lot of the Florida people as well. I mean, everyone that we met there when we were there this past year was just super fucking cool. I remembered you like Jup a couple months ago, and you said if it stays above $1, it's okay. Yeah, this was many months ago now, and $1 was a very important pivot for that. Well, it's well below that now. Do you think we would have some sort of pity bounces? Can always happen, sure, but below $1 was kind of like my long-term signal that hey, this thing is not. Oh, holy shit." Okay, so it broke $1, and then in the next couple months following that, went all the way down to 30 cents. Jesus, man. Terrible. Yeah, is it going to get a pity bounce? I think you're getting that right here. So this question is probably coming maybe a little bit later. We've been looking for pity bounces amongst most crypto assets coming into the last couple weeks, and it finally started to really get materialized this past week. Do I think it can bounce more from here? Yeah, maybe, but short term, I think that this one pulls back. I think most things in the very short term pull back a little bit, but is it going to make a lower low than the last price action pivot at 35 cents? Probably not. Ideally comes down here, sets in a higher low, then bounces all the way up. I would think, at most you're going to see a bounce towards the white 200 simple, which probably comes down closer to like 75 cents relatively soon. And at least to the 50% level, which is 62 cents or so. So yeah, I think you're in the midst of a pity bounce right now, even though the very, very short term probably pulls back a little bit. But yeah, overall, the market needs a little bit of a relief here. What's up, Wheelie 420? Sell in May, walk away. I remember that one from the last run. Yeah. I actually need to do an analysis on that myself, again, just to make sure, sell in May and go away is actually it actually does work. But if I recall correctly, it was pretty fucking good, just blindly trusting kind of, but not for just May, obviously. Like it's like sell in May and go away until like September, typically. Love Woods, what's up, man? Good Easter to you as well. You're looking at NASDAQ futures, full out. Got it. Okay. Where's my NAS? There it is. Closed the week off pretty well. I do think it probably extends a little bit more here towards 19,800 or so on the 4 hour, but like I said, most markets I do think are getting ready for a bit of a pullback. The thing is that traditional markets have been kind of lagging Bitcoin here, so maybe this thing goes a little bit, maybe gets even closer to like $20,000 first, tags this local high here, which would be kind of the same high that Bitcoin is in the process of testing, and then pulls back a little bit. But yeah, both of those scenarios, imply that very, very short term, probably one more try a little bit higher. But I would be cognizant that higher term time frames starting to, they're going to start to brush up against relevant regions like the daily 55. You're seeing, again, extremes here on BBWP. So, that would be an area of interest for a bit of a pullback into a very short term reversal. Again, I don't think that this one's taking out the lows here anytime soon. But overall, and again, this might not be super relevant to the 4 hour, but overall, I do expect it to get at least to the 200 simple, on this rally, on this overall rally. Again, on a 4 hour time frame, there's going to be many twists and turns along the way there, but that would be the big area of interest to be aware of. I mean, that's, obviously your last major swing high, major moving average as well. It's a good area to be aware of. Above there, that's where everyone kind of has to switch into a bullish bias overall, looking for new highs. Of course, there's always a potential for a bull trap. That's really the purpose of doing that, is like you take out that last lower high and then you take out the lows. And that's when you got a real problem, because that is a traditional bull trap. But yeah, for right now, you kind of have to run with the other assumption until proven otherwise, or at least I do. So yeah. All right. Tobo says, GM Crown, I hope you're hydrated and relaxed. You know what? I'm going to do exactly that right now. Thank you, man. I appreciate that nice positive message. That's awesome. Thank you, brother. Barash says, hype USDT. Okay. Daily. Okay. Hype USDT on daily. Let's see. I think I have been watching this one as well. This one also had a really nice bounce. Daily time frame. My LARP lines have it bouncing a little bit more here, but they also had it going down a little bit lower than where it was as well. So I think that one goes out by the wayside. And this line of destiny also getting broken as well, with momentum turning down. So I do think that you are getting a pullback here. I mean, like obviously it's pulling back right here, but I do think it pulls back lower. It's also at the 12 hour 200 simple. I do think it'll pull back at least to 16 and a half or so. It's only by like a little bit more than a buck lower than where it's at right now. Reconnects with the weekly 5. Yeah, that's like low 16s. Is it possible for it to find a low there and then try again to the upside? I suppose yes, but I'd want to see it first. This one's kind of scary to me in a way, because it's literally the exact scenario that we just kind of outlined as a potential for the prior chart for Lovewoods, in that you took out the last major high from late March, made a higher high, but you haven't really seen like a pretty significant higher low just yet. Yes, this kind of works as one over here, but it's a weak low to me. So, if this thing comes back down and actually violates 1475, I would look at this as like confirmed bull trap, confirmed, coming back down to the lows or close to the lows, and, looks pretty bad. But yeah, long-term, I know a lot of people like this as an asset, but as a chart, I really don't like it. And I haven't liked it for a while. So yeah, I would switch around my mind, and honestly, this is not even helpful because it's so far away, but I would switch around my mind above 23.5. Something like this needs to prove itself, in my opinion, before being more optimistic on it. That's just me. Anyways, all right, let's see. Nick L. says, Crown and Elsa, keep crushing it. MicroStrategy, daily, weekly, 10-day Jewel looks juicy. Let's actually go to the Jewel over here, and you are looking at MSTR on NAS. Very, very nice. Very nice. I mean, this chart to me this is the chart that makes me think, okay, maybe Swanee is right about Bitcoin, because the monthly is really fucking good. It's really fucking good. The monthly, I mean, it's not a bullish engulfing, but hey, trading back above the past 2 months highs and closing above there would be really fucking good, especially on hidden bullish divergence. That probably at least retests all-time highs and maybe makes new all-time highs. Anyways, 10-day time frame. Let's see. Does the 10-day Jewel look good? I wouldn't say so, to be honest, man. If anything, it's switching around into a bearish posturing. Don't know how much I trust it. I mean, I really like the chart here, to be fair. But yeah, I guess if this thing can reclaim exactly where that price action pivot is here, 404.5, yeah, this thing's going to make new highs. Be very, very good. It's really all that I got to say about that, man. Let's see what time we're at. Okay, another 10 minutes or so. And Mark says, hey, Crown, in an algo strategy, how much is reasonable range of percentage yearly returns? Do you agree with Grok? Okay, this is going to be 100% bullshit. Bitcoin profitability unleveraged 10 to 25% annually for a robust trend following strategy. It completely depends, man. Look, you're not gonna fucking know what the answer is until you actually do the back testing yourself, using something like the Quant Prime or even like a pen and paper. Like, you need to back test yourself. Then you will have the answer for your particular strategy. To ask how much is a reasonable range of percent yearly return it's an impossible question to answer. Like, am I running a 5-minute strategy? Am I running a daily strategy? Am I running a weekly strategy? All of these things are going to have massively different answers for that. So yeah, that's like, I can't really get any more specific than that because it's going to be inaccurate. So yeah, sometimes you get a negative return, that can happen too. J35 says Ethereum daily, weekly. Okay. Let's see, where is this Ethereum amazing coin? And let's see, you were looking at a daily and a weekly. How far can this bounce go? If it's still going by the time you do this Q&A. Like I said, I think most cryptos are getting ready for a pullback relatively soon. Ethereum has certainly been lackluster on this bounce compared to most other things, not even keeping pace with Bitcoin, really. But I do think that overall it is going to go higher. What I'm looking at here is the weekly. If the weekly closes above the 5 EMA, which is 1758 by tonight, which is closing in 15 hours, 12 minutes, and some odd seconds, we're going to see it reclaim at least a 5 EMA for the first time in many months, like more than 5-6 months. And we're also going to see weekly stochastic momentum turn up as well from a very, very low level. Now, again, just like when the stochastic momentum also gets deep inside the bullish control zone, that's, typically a good thing. When it gets deep inside the bearish control zone, not so good a thing. But I do think you can have a very big bounce here. I think that it still can bounce at least above $2,000, like somewhere between 2,100 to 2,400, very, very likely. But it's just, as far as a short-term bounce goes, I think that you maybe play out a short-term pullback. Should be a higher low. It's fine, I guess, as long as you're above the price action pivot here, which is 1540. So yeah. There we go, another burp. Anyways, Ems says, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Crown. El Satoshi's left is my favorite part of the stream. Hey, what the fuck? I thought it was my beautiful, raspy lesbian voice. Kidding. Anyways, could you have a look at Tesla on the daily, look into DCA if there's a chance of a lower price? I think last we looked at it, oh, wow. This thing is... Actually, I think that, it's price action pivot has switched around to a bullish pivot right there. So before I was saying, I think that this thing can still come down a little bit more, maybe like 180, but that should be a good area. I would say with the advent of this price action, with the price action pivot flipping around, okay, I'm going to be wrong about that. This thing should probably try higher from where it's at. Now, is it going to make new all-time highs from this exact low? I don't know if I'd say that, but you can imagine that this thing's going to take its time consolidating, but it still retains a bullish bias for the consolidation. So looking at something like this, right? Does it come back down close to the lower end of this range again? Probably yes at some point, but this is a monthly look. Like this can take like a year, maybe even 2 years. I would imagine it probably breaks out officially sometime around mid next year, if I had to guess. So how many twists and turns do you get along that way? Who the fuck knows? Could you get another test down around here? Sure. But it's effectively the lows that we saw for April anyway. So I guess that's a decision for you. In fact, I was thinking of maybe just buying a long-term hodl position for this one as well. I feel bad for Elon, honestly. Like, he comes into the administration trying his best to just help. Half the country fucking hates him immediately, starts attacking his prized possessions and his companies. This thing came down, what, 56%? Now it's down about 40%. Yeah, I might as well just buy a little bit. Why aren't you streaming on YouTube? As I've stated many times, these streams that we do on Twitter are just while I'm recording for the usual videos. It's not like a proper live stream. It's just a Q&A. And by the way, I actually go live on Twitter anytime I record a video, a pre-recorded video, that is. Anyways. Cheers from Aussie land to the land of high taxes. So I hear. But is it higher than Finland? Well, I don't know if you, I don't know who wants to win that race, but it's not a fucking good one. Anyways, Beans Baxter says, hello, I love watching your channel. I've learned a lot. That's awesome to hear. A friendly recommendation, which will selfishly help me out, and I think will help out the entire community. I watched the videos accompany the HPDR indicator, but I'm having a difficult time making decisions based on the HPDR bands. Seeing you use these paid indicators in real-time analysis during your live streams would go along. I mean, I pretty much look at the HPDR bands like every video I do, man, to be honest. As far as incorporating it into your own strategies, we have posted strategies using it as a driver in the Quant Prime service. There's also, some ideas for strategies in the teachable content as well. But at the end of the day, you can use the HPDR in so many different ways. You can use it as a scalping tool. You can use it as a sort of trend bias tool. You can use it as a range bias tool. There's many ways to do it, way more than I can, reasonably go over. And I also don't know all of them as well, just because there's so many unique ways to use it. Yeah. Anyways, you want me to use it for the live streams? Yeah, sure. I mean, I typically do, to be honest, but, I guess I use it a little more on pre-recorded videos. Does it need to be on live streams? Well, I don't know, but, yeah. I can definitely consider it. We can see. Thank you for the feedback as always, ma'am. It is actually quite helpful. All right. Mr. Gallo says, hello, sir. What's up, man? What are your thoughts on using leveraged ETFs for long-term trades versus margin, specifically on long-term investments? Oh, I really don't know, man. I really don't know. So you're saying instead of buying Tesla, I bought TSLT, Tesla 2X. I understand decay is a factor, but I expect more green days for the rest of the year on the stock market and Tesla to make a huge comeback. I mean, is there potential to capitalize more? Yes. If you are a very long-term investor, is it going to be a net positive over time? Probably not. But there's a lot of factors that go into that, man. So I don't necessarily know. For long-term investors, investing, what would you do and why? Well, I only do spot for long-term investing. The simple reason is I don't want any extra risk, no risk. I'll let time work for me. That's fine, but I don't want any unforeseen risk at all whatsoever. So your intention is to sell 10 to 20% away of all-time highs. So yeah, yours is not necessarily like a long-term investment. Yours is just a long-term trade. My work, like I said, I stay away from them personally, but again, I'm just very risk averse when it comes to stock market and long-term investments. That's just me. Doesn't need to be the same for you. But yeah. Tom BJ says, do you think STX is bottomed? What are likely targets? I'm guessing I'm getting to this one late, but yeah, I already know that this thing had a pretty tremendous move to the upside. We were also looking for a big bounce off of this region simply as a pity bounce by getting towards this last major monthly low, which was back on over in September of 2023. I think that it goes higher overall. I think at least at minimum, you're going to hit like 1 to 105. I personally think it could go for more than that, maybe like 135. Again, this is going to take some time. This is a monthly, right? But is there some hopium here for the long term? As long as this low holds, yes, there is, because it would be a higher low on a monthly and quarterly. Problem is that you probably don't want to wait for this low to get taken out to get bearish, right? We got our, LARP lines worked out pretty well there. Nice. I would be treating this one bullish as long as the price action pivot is still giving an upside bias, even in the short term. And it's about to switch from here to the new developing one right here, actually. So marching it up there. But yeah, even the 200 simple is around about 135. So that would be a pretty damn good area. But that is where you'd be expecting a major high at minimum for a pullback and at most for, a bull trap. So we'll see. It, from cycle to cycle, this thing has held higher lows. So that's a good sign. So there should be hopium for an actual long-term continuation as long as that condition is met. It's not like most shitcoins, although it did have a really bad fall here, but it's not like most shitcoins that just continue to make new lows upon their macro lows, right? All right, we're almost towards the end of the stream. Pukas says, after your heavy loss, the one you outlined in the last Q&A, what did you do to regain an account, and how long did it take you to get from that point back up to where you were at around 150,000 plus? Cheers, brother. Okay, so I need to first state, before I give you the answer to this, I do not recommend anyone at all whatsoever does what I'm about to tell you that I did. This was... there was probably a high degree of luck in this. There was also, a lot of training before this as well. Like, I'd already been trading for a few years before this, or at least 2 to 3 years before this. Okay. Again, massively lucky in a way. All right, I'll tell you what I did. I maxed out my credit cards, which somehow I still had like a decent limit there. So that gave me like, I don't know, 20,000 bucks. I took out a loan for another 10, 15 or 20. I forget exactly how many. I'll just say 15, cut it to the middle there. And then my father actually gave me a small amount as well. Well, relatively small. I mean, I think that was 5,000 or 10,000. To help me get back on my feet. And I actually did I paid back everyone 100% as soon as I could. I really did. It was very, very important to me. I don't like having debts on my mind at all. It's like the worst feeling, honestly. And like I said, like this could have gone so fucking poorly. It could have really gone so fucking poorly. But I basically had somewhere probably around like 50,000 to start again from, which was maybe just enough at that point, just enough to get going again and to get back up to where I was. I think it was like 2 or 3 years. It was like another year or two of kind of getting back on my feet. That was still in traditional markets. Then I got into crypto, and I entered in 2017, right? So it doesn't take a fucking genius to make a shit ton of money then. So that also helped out a lot as well, for sure. So there's a lot of circumstantial luckiness in this equation. Again, I do not suggest anyone else do this. I'm honestly like I don't like talking about it that much because I know, even though I say, hey, like, don't fucking do this, there's going to be some young kid out there who's like, oh shit, you can just do that. It's like, yes, but look, it could have gone so fucking bad, man. It really could have gone so fucking bad. So, I wouldn't suggest it. It would have been a much better idea for me to have just simply gotten a job and then just taken that income taken all of the excess income that I didn't need for my day-to-day life and use that to build up another account. That would have been much safer, and that's probably what most people should do. Especially if you're still in the learning phase, you should not be taking any loans or anything like that at all, because that's going to go like very poorly. Because when you're in the learning phase, you really cannot expect to be making any sort of consistent money, probably consistent losses, if anything, which is why size should be very, very low during that period. Anyways, we got Treebeard next. He says, hello, sir. Hello, sir. All right. We'll do okay. We got a couple ones here. These are easy, so I'll do them quite quickly. Cookie Monster says, hey, Crown, love to see a close couple like you and Elsa. A little bit jealous. Yeah, man, she's awesome. Elsa's the best. But congratulations. Relationships like this are rare these days. Give her a kiss. Besides having butterflies in the stomach, can you look at Bytes versus Wrapped Ethereum? Okay. Okay. Okay, so long term, obviously I'm not going to like a chart like this, but like most things, it's probably going to continue on with a bounce. I do think this bounce will find its top somewhere around here. Let's give a range between like $4 to all the way up to $5. It's kind of a wide range, I figure, but yeah, should get at least somewhere around there. Weekly stochastic momentum is to the upside, but this thing likes lower highs, and I do not like lower highs. But yeah, should have a pretty decent rally from where it's at right now. I mean, that's a pretty big move. I guess there's potential for it to salvage itself. I mean, the monthly hasn't really closed on new lows yet. So I guess the bullish interpretation of this would be, hey, it's just a range. You got your lows here, you got your highs here. A little bit higher than this high, but that's okay. As long as you're within that range, maybe it's an accumulation. But I personally think maybe not, especially when we consider that this is being charted versus Ethereum. So Ethereum's also like weak, but this thing is was doing worse than Ethereum, now doing a little bit better. So yeah. Yeah, I can't say that I love it, man. I didn't even know that it's related to Elliot or Alex Becker, but Overall, I do think that it goes higher from where it's at right now. I don't think it's going to like take out this high, for example, from December of last year. Happy to be proven wrong. There's plenty of room here for a decent rally, but that would be my inclination based off of the history of looking at many shitcoin charts. Anyways, Unicord says, what do you think about funded or prop shops? So I kind of got my own start in a prop shop, but it's not the same sort of prop shops that you see online, like FTMO and shit like this. This was like a real market making, equity options market making prop shop, like an in-person thing. Now I'm assuming you're referring to, the stuff that I typically see online, like FTMO and Top Step and all of these things. And, I've heard mixed reviews, to be honest. Some people swear by them. They say, hey, this provides a lot of benefits. It allows me to trade, an account, which I otherwise wouldn't have. I get paid out when I want to get paid out. Okay, fair enough. And maybe there's some tax benefits as well. Other people have said that the conditions are like way too stringent to reasonably make money, and they try to fuck you in many different places. And I've heard many issues with getting payouts from the lesser reputable companies. Now, if you look at the description of this video, I actually have partnered with Breakout Prop. The reason why I partnered with Breakout Prop is because I actually know Trader Main, who is he's like the main guy there. And he's a solid guy. I trust him. He's doxed himself. It's not like he's trying to hide or anything like this. So I look at that as a very good signal that he's not just going to like fuck people over. And he doesn't seem like that type to me as well. He seems like a very straight shooter, seems like a very good guy. And I have no reason to believe that he is that person. Can I be wrong? Of course I can be wrong. I don't there's no way for me to fully know, but that's the vibe I get. That's the impression I get. And then I also have several friends who have used his service, Breakout Prop, and they only have good things to say. So to me, that's like, all right, I know that this is a service that many people could benefit from. It is a good way to get started, in my opinion, because you really have to be strict with your risk management, maybe a little bit too strict, to be honest, but that might be a good thing, or it probably is a good thing, especially when you're starting and, you're not trading your own money. So your losses are, they're not necessarily yours, although they kind of are yours. You get what I'm saying though. So, I think it can be great to get started with. I think in the, as you get more and more advanced, probably not. Like the ideal position is to be trading your own money. I just think that is, the ideal destination, but hey, to each their own, right? All right. Jim Bob says, hello, sir. Keen to sell no Santa on this bounce. It's looking a bit weak in comparison to some. Well, let's see. So this is a prior cycle shitcoin, I believe. No Santa. Yeah, very, very bad. But like most things, it's going to get a bounce here, or it already is bouncing, obviously. Already maybe finding a local high here, but I do think, over the coming months or so, might head up into this blue box territory here. I think that would probably be the extent of the bounce, or at max, it would be the 200 simple on the daily. That's your traditional area, but that's going to be coming down, to meet this box at some point. So yeah, that'd be kind of my area of interest. But in the very short term, does it pull back and then try an upside move? I'd probably be more inclined to say that, yes. So yeah, anyways, we are past our 1 hour of hanging out here. So I'm going to shut things off on that note. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone joining on in. Of course, I want to thank everyone on Twitter as well for hanging out, because that always makes things fun. And we'll continue on tomorrow with some Bitcoin's analysis. Until then, wish you the best of best. As always, take care, much love, and see you hopefully Monday.